Despite claims that the EV revolution has peaked and maybe it's past that time, it just ain't so. The big oil companies appear to be jumping in with both feet. Well, maybe dipping a single toe in the water, but we're getting there. And if they see it coming, surely the rest of us can see it coming. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla Weekend. So we got Herbert here to make us brighter. His channel is Brighter with Herbert, and he does fantastic work, and I appreciate him joining us to cut through the nonsense and figure out what's really going on. Exxon, looks like they're getting into lithium mining. What do you make of that?
A little bit too little, too late. They should have done this 2 to 5 years ago. My understanding is just a little tiny little drop in the bucket. Is it $100 million to the $60 billion that they make? But they know they need to expand. They need to get into this space. Lithium is the new gold, I guess, or basically the new oil, isn't it? You've heard Elon say, begging for any other company out there to do lithium refinery, lithium mining. It's going to be core mineral required for batteries, and there's just not going to be enough to service the world. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good sign that they did this because they've had their kind of heads in the sand for too long. Literally. One question I've had to ask you though is, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but oil is very lucrative, and how much they can sell and how long it takes, how much money it takes to do that. How much would be they'll be able to sell lithium, and maybe lithium is a commodity. They may not be able to make as much money. So,
well, they are both commodities, and it comes down to, can they control the market? It used to be that OPEC could set prices, and increasingly that's been difficult because a lot of big oil producing countries don't participate in ways that OPEC would want them to. So the price fluctuations have been very frustrating for folks like Saudi Aramco. But lithium is, this is a company that knows mining and refining. They know what they're doing. And one thing is, if you are getting your lithium from Arkansas, which is what this proposal is, it would qualify as domestic minerals under the IRA. So that means any buyer buying that would automatically be willing to pay a small premium on it over imported lithium. And there are already battery factories in the US. Tesla's got 2, 3 if you count Cato Road, and more are coming online from other manufacturers as well. We know Panasonic, Samsung, and I think SK all have plants under construction to build batteries within the US. It's great to shorten the supply chain, but there's only like 40 kilograms of lithium in an entire car. So it's not the biggest part, but it is a necessary part. And Exxon doing one fairly small, fairly straightforward operation in Arkansas is great. And the approval for it, because it's a borehole kind of mining rather than strip mining or actually digging, should mean that the approvals are substantially easier to get because the potential for disturbing the land is substantially less. Moving on to Shell, fairly big company there. Did you know that they have a street lamp charging setup that they use to charge people's cars at the street?
I do know because I watched your video. I was very, very impressed with you actually going to this conference, and you interviewed this representative for Shell, and she was explaining how this works. First of all, I think it's a brilliant idea. The second point, I read an article that told me this, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, is that many of these oil and gas companies are trying to get into electric vehicles and sustainable energy, but it's called greenwashing, where it's just really a marketing term. They kind of put a little investment in it, a little drop in the bucket, minuscule, and then they market the hell out, to tell people that we're really green and sustainable. But the article I read said that of all of the oil and gas, Shell is actually not greenwashing. They really are investing, and they truly want to do this. I don't know if this is true or not.
It's tough to say because it's still such a small percentage of their business. These are installed quickly, competently, and profitably. So the way it works is the city, you remember the old buzzing yellow street lamps that were the sodium lamps. They they use like 500 watts. So you had to run
Yeah.
a substantial amount of power to every pole. They've all been replaced with LEDs that use a fraction of that. We've got level 1 charging. You say, well, level 1 is not exciting. It's what I've been using at home. It's for my needs. It's great. And I would take level 1 every day over level 0, which is what a lot of these people would have otherwise. And they come in, the city makes the deal. You can't request one. They don't do it that way. The city, whoever controls all the lamps, makes the deal, tells them which streets, and they zip through. It takes something like 20 to 30 minutes per lamp post to get them installed.
Mm.
And the whole neighborhood is electrified. So that's kind of a big deal.
Sure, but it's kind of weird because if I'm going to, unless this is street parking in front of my house, then I can see I'm going to plug it overnight. But if it's like parking in front of a mall or something like that, it's weird because I'm only going to be there for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. If it's just level 1, it's not going to be enough. It's trickle.
Well, I think this is residential streets. So it would be good for your home. But even if your work is around the corner, you've got 8 hours. That's going to get you a quarter of your battery. Now, I don't know if you've heard of a little company called BP, but they have announced that they are purchasing some equipment to put into their gas stations. Have you heard about this?
Of course, I heard about it. You and I did a show on this. So BP is British Petroleum, one of the largest oil and gas companies, and they've invested $100 million buying superchargers directly from Tesla to be able to implement in U.S., going across the U.S. So this is a big deal, I think, in my mind. It's a symbolic that an oil and gas company buying chargers from Tesla. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for, again, we talked about it. BP, $100 million is nothing compared to the 60 billion or whatever, 100 billion that they make. But Tesla, again, not a big deal. But, implementing this in gas stations is a critical, change because that these gas stations know that they're going to die and they need to, get on board with electric vehicles. And then it's actually going to bring them more money because people spend more time charging up rather than the 3-4 minutes of, gas and get out of there. They make more money in the retail store. I just think it's symbolically incredibly important. And as we predicted, once BP did this, just a few days ago, EG Group came out and they're going to do the same thing in Europe. So they're buying superchargers. And then something that folks are reminding me is that this is not just a hardware purchase, and they're going to brand it. They're not going to brand it Tesla. They're going to brand it theirs. But it's a software and it's a service. So they're going to probably have some sort of revenue share with Tesla. But it's also, you're going to use Tesla's apps to be able to find out which superchargers are available where. And so there's a tremendous benefit to Tesla beyond just the money transaction.
And that's what I've been reading, is that this would be essentially a white label kind of deal. It will be Tesla hardware. It will be Tesla software and competence and reliability. It's just going to say BP on the front. It'll still show up on your supercharger map when you put it into your navigation, because these are going to be level 4s, I believe. So they're going to be real great chargers. And you're right. The franchise owners of these gas stations are probably concerned that there's a change coming and we're not going to be in on it. And this is a good way, even if it is a little bit of greenwashing, for BP to say, look, we still got your back. You're still going to make it. We're going to help you transition, even though we don't necessarily want to.
Yeah. But the other point I want to make is that this is the first time that another company is putting money to build superchargers significantly across the US and now Europe globally. Tesla has done this all by themselves for this long. To have another company pay for this. And then, so the critical point is that, when the consumer realizes that charging and range anxiety is not a thing anymore because, there's chargers everywhere. Hilton will have chargers in their area. Gas stations, Shell, Texaco, they're going to have superchargers there. I'm not going to be worried anymore. It's going to be just like gas stations now. So
yeah, and it's already almost there in most places. Certainly throughout the middle empty parts where population density is low, it's still difficult. Not as easy as gas stations, but I've been on road trips before where You see a sign that says last gas for this many miles, and you got to make a calculation there. Have you heard that Chevron has invested in a new EV charging firm? Let's see, Era EV Charging. It's a very small move. This one is definitely more on the token side. Don't think it deserves a whole lot of discussion, but everybody's doing this. You know who owns Saudi Aramco? Yeah, it's the Saudi royal family. They also own the majority of Lucid. Now, we can debate how serious of a company Lucid is. I don't think it would be a very long debate, but we can also agree that the Saudis consider it a very serious company. They consider this a very serious endeavor. It is not a token for them. They have put in a whole heap of money, and they are hopeful and perhaps even confident that this is going to work for them. So all these oil companies, what is your takeaway from all these steps from the big legacy oil companies? What is the takeaway? What's going on? What is the trend we're seeing?
Let's start with the highest level, right? Energy is the largest industry in the world compared to any other industry in the world. And I just did a report that Bloomberg NEC did a massive research, and they shared that the transition to electric vehicles at the base case is $57 trillion. Okay. And with incentives by government, it's going to be what expected, $88 trillion. Wow. So what they're reporting is that not only are car companies, auto manufacturers vying to get a foothold and to have a presence, as you saw, but countries are fighting each other and realizing that this is a new world. Saudi Arabia controlled oil, and that this is what causes wars. This is tremendous. Look how rich they all are, right? Wouldn't you want to be a prince in Saudi Arabia? Because all of their citizens are incredibly well off because of oil.
Yeah.
This transfer allows countries, and that's where you're seeing China as a country make a big step forward. They're going to be really pushing hard to make sure, and they're succeeded to create a Chinese auto company, industry. So this is a little late for many because they had their heads in the sand, but now they need to step up and really, it's a new world and they need to get in it. Otherwise they're gone. So they know this.
All that sounds reasonable to me. I think that's, the whole thing. They're in the business of selling energy. These companies are in the business of selling energy. And if they can skip all the exploration and refinement and just go straight to the consumer and say, look, we're just going to mark it up 30% at the handle. Great, do it. That's going to be the easiest business model they've ever done. And hopefully it will be enough to keep their stations happy, because the stations don't make a lot of money off the gas itself. They make the money off you going inside. That's why restrooms are for customers only, Herbert. All right, so what did we miss? What do we misunderstand? I'll leave it into them comments below. And for everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I can't wait to hear from you clever robots very soon.